The Weapon Plus program is a big, huge pile of complicated. For about 12 years, the big shadowy organization behind the creation of the Marvel Comics character Wolverine was called the Weapon X program, but a later retcon in Grant Morrison's run on New X-Men asserts that the Weapon X program was just a small part of a much larger organization. Morrison also added the flair that the entire Weapon Plus program was the brainchild of a sentient bacteria as old as time itself called Sublime. I've said before that most of Sublime's character motivations make precious little sense in the way of plot, even if it makes a great deal of sense in terms of theme. So let's just ignore Sublime and its alleged involvement in the Weapon Plus program for the purposes of this video. Many longtime X-Men readers loathe Grant Morrison's work on New X-Men for a variety of reasons. One given reason is the severity of the retcons that he added to the X-Men. As far as I'm concerned, retcons, like anything else in the way of comics, need to be taken on a case-by-case basis. They can work if handled correctly, but sometimes they make things even worse, and you often find yourself asking why the retcon was even added in the first place. Personally, I see nothing wrong with changing the Weapon X program to the much larger Weapon Plus program. For one thing, many of Morrison's detractors seem to forget that the Weapon X program that Barry Windsor Smith introduced as part of Wolverine's origin in Marvel Comics Presents is itself a retcon that was added 17 years after Wolverine was introduced. But the history of Wolverine is a subject for another video that I'm not going to get into right now. The Weapon Plus program really isn't a very complicated concept. The idea is that humans experiment on animals, humans, and finally mutants to create living weapons that they can use to aid them in war. The wars change, the level of sinister intention changes, but the basic premise is always the same. Now, when I was younger, I kinda hated that Morrison folded characters like Nuke and Captain America into the Weapon X backstory because I felt there was a contradiction in what had already been laid down in earlier comics. We had been told that the Weapon X program was originally called Weapon Chi, which is the Greek letter for X. We were even told that there were multiple Weapon X's. My thinking was, if each project is a different Roman numeral, then why isn't Garrison Kane Weapon 11, or 15, or 25? But after recently rereading Morrison's run, I think he left a loophole that can fix this problem. For that matter, as I'm older and less prone to histrionics when it comes to retcons or changes of any kind being added to the comics, I'm not even sure if there ever was a problem in the first place. According to Morrison, there were at least 15 sub-programs within the Weapon Plus program, going from the 1940s all the way to the present day. The Super Soldier program that Dr. Erskine oversaw was part of Weapon 1. Criminals like Cyber and Nuke were part of Weapon 7. And mutant experimentation began in Weapon 10, or since they used Roman numerals, Weapon X. The reason I was so against this change when I was younger was that I was under the impression that each weapon was just one character, and then they moved on to the next weapon designation. But that just isn't the case. We see here that the Weapon 7 program used criminals, plural. So logically, we can safely assume that other levels of the Weapon Plus program used multiple people in each weapon designation as well. This allows for Isaiah Bradley to be part of either Weapon 4, 5, or 6, and it allows for Garrison Kane to be a later version of Weapon 10 sometime after Wolverine. The only question we should be asking here is how many men or women would go through one particular phase of the Weapon Plus program before that weapon designation was ended and a new weapon designation was begun? Or are we led to assume that multiple designations were going on at the same time? For example, if Weapon 7 was going on before World War I when Cyber and Wolverine first met, and was going on up until the 70s when Nuke was part of that program, it seems very likely that some of these weapon designations were going on simultaneously. But maybe they didn't happen at the same time. Maybe each weapon designation happened in a linear fashion, in which case we do have some questions that we need to ask. It's safe to assume that the events of Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X storyline from Marvel Comics Presents happened sometime before the founding of the first team of X-Men. And while we don't exactly know when Garrison Kane underwent enhancements in Weapon X, we know that it happened sometime after his previous encounter with Deadpool. But that still could have been at any point in time in the Marvel Universe between the real-world dates of 1963 and 1991. With such a large gap of time in between Wolverine and Garrison Kane, why wouldn't the higher-ups at the Weapon Plus program say, okay, Weapon 10 ended with most of our staff exterminated, it's time we moved on to Weapon 11? One possible explanation would be that each scientist or group of scientists would be over a weapon designation, and anytime there was a changing of the guard, then that chapter of the Weapon Plus program would end and a new one would begin. But that doesn't make sense, as Wolverine nearly killed everyone involved in the Weapon X program when he escaped, and Garrison Kane was part of the Weapon X program sometime later. Ultimately, I guess it doesn't really matter why they would keep one aspect of the Weapon Plus program like Weapon 10 going for so long, but then they would end another aspect after just one subject like Weapon 1. Maybe these weapon designations were happening simultaneously, as that seems to make the most sense. Does this answer every question and patch every plot hole concerning the Weapon Plus program's storied history? No, of course not. For something that covers over 70 years of comic book stories, of course there's going to be some contradictions. But like I said, it is impossible to try and reconcile all of the contradictions and elements of this section of the Marvel Universe. But do I think this does an okay job of reconciling most of the elements we have been given? Yeah, I think so. But what do you guys think? Did you learn something new from this video? If you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And even if you didn't learn anything new, you can still do those things if you really enjoyed this video. Anyway, I'll see you guys later in the week with some different kinds of videos. Have a great rest of the day.